Well, we actually have a question for our next guest right out of the gate, which is not what are you doing? It's what do you do? What do you do?
Oh.
I would love a title. I would love to hear exactly what Will Hewlett of Quarterback Collective does or has done.
You want me to go to his LinkedIn?
Over the years. Please do.
Okay.
We're going to need a resume, Will. What do you do with Brock Purdy? Please explain.
Well, appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Brock's throwing coach, I guess you could say. So this past offseason, getting ready for the NFL draft, after leaving Iowa State, all the NFL players, they go off to facilities. All the aspiring NFL players go off to train at facilities, and Brock picked the group that I work with down here in Jacksonville, Florida. And so we spent, many months preparing for the NFL draft, combine, pro day, and really just readjusted, tweaked some of his throwing mechanics, got his body right in different areas. It gave him kind of a slight overhaul to get him ready for the NFL.
So your level of surprise based on how he's looked in these two games is what?
Well, I want to say that I knew it was going to turn out exactly like this, but I knew Brock was special. I knew that being picked last overall, even though it's still a blessing to be picked, that he was as good, if not better, than a lot of current NFL quarterbacks. He's got some traits that are, undeniably, you're seeing right now on Sundays. So I'm not surprised by how well he's performed, but it is still, you got to sit back and go, wow, like it's quite amazing.
It's been amazing so far through 7 quarters for 49ers fans, getting excited for Brock Purdy and what he could do this season. You talked about some of the measurables, and Mark was reading your tweet from halftime of the game and saying that teams need to start looking at other things when they're assessing quarterback play. What are the things that I guess general managers should have seen in Brock Purdy that so many didn't?
Yeah, it's interesting. The NFL has evolved with certain organizations and others not so much. The Niners are pretty forward-thinking about how they scout players. They do a really good job. Obviously, the Patriots are unreal at it. The metrics that we grade quarterbacks by, I think the things that always stand out are going to be height, arm strength, and just a certain look and a feel to how they play. But there's a lot of technology out there that is uncovered. I guess we could call it like the it factor. We do a cognitive test that tests the ability of the athlete. It's called S2. It measures things like their ability to track objects, how quickly they can pick up, things in space, how quickly they can see the field. And Brock's scores on that were off the chart, like elite NFL starter, as good as any out there, right? So the game is such a demanding from a mental aspect, and just his work ethic, his background, his upbringing. I really felt like he had an opportunity to have a lot of success. And again, I think we put too much value on some of the other metrics. Now, again, obviously, like a player like Josh Allen, with the arm strength and the measurables and the intelligence side of things, he can have a lot of success. I just think there's a place for a Brock Purdy out there to have a long career. And too often than not, guys get overlooked because they don't fit the traditional pro look.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. We're talking with Will Hewlett, who is Brock Purdy's throwing coach at QB Collective, worked together in the offseason in Jacksonville, Florida, here on Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. So, Will, where do teams make mistakes then, in your opinion? Is it just is it time to move off of he needs to be 6'4", and need to have a howitzer of an arm? I mean, I know that there are those guys out there, Mahomes, Allen, et cetera, but where are teams making mistakes as far as that old style you referenced?
Yeah, it's value on what we see in person, right? It's what we finding better ways to measure some of the aspects of the game that are hard to track. And it's one of those deals where, like, if you ask the Iowa State coaches, they've been around him for, 4 or 5 years, the 46 starts he had. They're going to have an intimate understanding of how he plays the game. And sometimes I think, organizations will get caught up in maybe the combine performance, or an exceptional outing at the pro day, when really those things should just confirm that they can throw well, and that they're not, there's no major glaring, mechanical issues. We need to put more value on, what they do on the field, and you got to take into account their team situation. Not everyone plays, for an Alabama or an LSU. So what's the personnel like they're surrounded with? Do they make their teammates better? And then, so again, some of the other measurables that we can look at now with some of the technology out there, you can really dig under the covers and see how they move, some of the weaknesses that they have, the strengths that they have, and then again, understanding what ticks up top, how their brain works and how they see the field, really makes up. That's the reason why guys like Drew Brees, from a traditional standpoint, are going to be missed. But he's one of the greatest of all time. And so again, someone that's eluded the traditional measurables and from a quarterback standpoint, I think we've got to continue to dig into that, and we're going to find more Brocks out there.
You've got me in geek mode now, Will, I'll be honest, because I'm looking at s2cognition.com, and I'm looking at all the categories of this S2 cognition you talked about. Yeah. What's the one category where Brock really stands out the most, and how do we laymen, and I'm speaking for the rest of the audience, not me, because I'm an expert now, but how do we see these things actually play out in the way Brock is playing?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because, again, it just sounds like a bunch of, numbers, and then what does it actually mean? So one of the areas that they measure is called impulse control, and I think a good way to describe impulse control is essentially your ability to say yes or no to a very quick decision. Maybe the most, the way we could probably relate to it the most in real life would be, the decision when a police officer has to make, when they go through those, they see on like the movies, when they go through the target ranges and like a bad guy pops up and a schoolgirl pops up, and they have to decide whether or not they're going to pull the trigger or not. That threshold is called impulse control. And so that results in, when that translates into a quarterback, that's essentially their ability to pull the trigger or not pull the trigger, which could mean that could result in an interception or it could be a touchdown. So he's got a really good governor on his impulse control and his ability to really, understand when to throw it and when not to throw it. One of the other things that he was absolutely off the charts on was what we call perception speed, and his ability to pick up on the fly, see the field and see what's going on in detail. And it's funny because as we were training, before I had an intimate understanding of his scores, he would make comments like, I saw the safeties, hips move like this, stuff that you just, if a guy is picking up little details like that, then this kid's got an elite sense of what's going on. And so we have an ability to measure that. We've got a lot of quarterbacks that have had those measurements been taken that are in the professional leagues, and it starts to play out. You see the guys that are elite have elite scores for the most part. And it's not the answer to everything, but it certainly helps get a better picture on their abilities.
Well, I'm going to put you in a tiny bit of a spot here, but not really, because I think anyone who looks at this situation, Brock Purdy and the 49ers, understands that there's good things going on with both entities, if you will. But you're going to hear a lot of people say, well, Brock looks good, but it's also because he's in this healthy system, Kyle Shanahan and stars around him. When you just watch these 7 quarters, how much of this that we're watching with Brock Purdy is really, really real versus how much is coming from the healthy system in which he is playing?
No, that's a really insightful question. I think it's a combination of both. I think that you can't underestimate what Brock has done and how he's done it. It's not luck that he's had that much success, but it doesn't hurt that he's in the Shanahan tree. And I think a great example, that's not Brock Purdy is Tua over in Miami, right? Mike McDaniel's obviously a long time, Shanahan tree coach with the Niners for a very, very long time. He was a large architect of what they did from a run game standpoint, an offensive standpoint. That support system transferred over to Miami. You could show what coaching can do for a quarterback. And I think too often than not, guys are in the wrong system that are talented, or, whether they're talented or not. If you're in the wrong system with coaches that don't fully understand it, I think you're just not going to have great performances. For example, the Jaguars, right? Trevor Lawrence is absolutely crushing it right now. I think since week 9, he's like the highest rated quarterback in the NFL. There's a pretty substantial difference on what they're doing now compared to what they were doing last year. So, yeah, I think the system helps a ton. It is designed to take the pressure off the quarterback in a manner that they have to operate pre-snap. They have to be able to get them in the right call. And that's why a guy like Jimmy G wins so many games without throwing touchdowns. It's quite impressive, actually. So testament to the coaching side of it, but also Brock, fit it perfectly, I think, and the timing was perfect.
Yeah, the timing has been great. They need him to come in and play well, and he has. As you look at the 7 quarters and knowing Brock as well as you do, where's the one area of growth that you're looking at Brock to try to make between now and maybe the end of this season?
Yeah, I think, what it's going to come down to, and I think one of the things that I saw him do a really good job of is, always coming down to his safety net, finding the big tight end, being able to check the ball down to one of the best players in the NFL. I think one of the things that we want to see is just, how they come out. I felt like the Niners last game were very aggressive from like a passing standpoint early on, and I think that says a lot about Brock. And so continuing to convert on critical down and distance situations, and then having that run game support it. I think it's a two-way street, right? You got Christian McCaffrey that's playing really, really well. Hopefully when Debo gets back, other guys stepping up. So just starting off with a good rhythm, getting some nice early completions, and then having those big plays, some of the big passes he had, and in the hurry-up offense, I think also showed, their trust in him. So, but coming out early with a good start, I think always helps the quarterback get in a good rhythm and keep their confidence from there.
Hey, Will, really fascinating stuff, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
I appreciate you having me on, and we'll look forward to the game this Thursday. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, can we book you for Super Bowl week so that you can talk to us about what he's done so well over the 6 weeks to come?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right, perfect.
I love it.
All right,
perfect.
Your first call, Will Hewlett. There you go.